how do we produce the energy we still want? How do we create new forms of mobility, such as electric vehicles? But how do we do all of that in a way that protects the planet and leaves something for our children, the world in a better place for them? There's a lot of changes happening right now, actually. I've been in the industry 25 years, but this is probably a time of one of the most rapid change that I've seen. So the change is happening by new technologies, essentially. So what you're seeing is batteries, electric vehicles, photovoltaic, home storage. All of those are technological changes, and they are being adopted at a very fast pace. So if you think of your iPhone or you think of another phone, that was adopted very quickly. It's a technology decision. These are the same sort of technology decisions. They're changing things fundamentally. And that is going to change the grid, because you'll have all these new devices that can play a role in help balancing the grid. They're not being decided by a central controller who's controlled the grid from the top for the last 30 years. Somebody going out to buy a Tesla or a storage on a battery or a solar panels plus a battery isn't ringing up the grid operator and say, do you mind if I buy this? They're buying it because it makes sense to them. The energy market is a very regulated market. It's a absolutely incredibly important market. People can't have the lights going off. And therefore we believe it's about a transition. It's about taking the old world and moving to a new world. It's not about revolution. So essentially what we do is we have two main parts to our platform. One is an asset register. So we need to know what assets essentially are connected to the grid and what those assets can do. Now in the old times when it was one big power station, a coal power station, it was easy to know what it was. But now you've got a renewable plant, maybe a wind or a solar plant that produces energy not all the time when the wind's blowing or the sun's shining, then it's got a different characteristic. When you have a battery, that's a different characteristic. When you have an electric vehicle, that's a different characteristic. So suddenly you need to know what assets you've got and where they're located on the grid, who owns them and who controls them. And so essentially what we do is we help map that out. And then the second part of that is that we attribute a smart contract to each one of those devices so that the owner or the controller of that device can then set a price at which it can bid that asset into flexibility. People are going out buying batteries, people are going out investing in wind farms and solar farms, they're going to go out and buy electric vehicles. And therefore these changes are happening to the grid whether they like it or not. And what they need is a methodology and a marketplace to ensure that we get the lowest possible cost for consumers. So I think what is exciting about Electron is that we are bringing change to an energy industry. We bring a huge amount of passion, and if we get this right, which we will, then essentially we're going to end up with lower costs for consumers, we're going to end up with less carbon on the system for the grid, and we're going to end up with a more reliable system. And all of that will have a big impact across the globe.